On this episode of Trying Not to Sink, we say goodbye to St Augustine. A mysterious leak floods our bilge in the middle of the night, and we drop the hook in Coco Village.
There's nothing leaking in any of those front buildings.
Could it be a sea cap?
I'm checking. I just turned off one of the sea cocks now to see if it made a difference. But I don't see any water coming in anywhere.
And it's still coming in?
I'm not sure what was happening, but it seemed like the bilge pump was pumping. You know, the water runs back in, whatever's in a little bit of bilge pump, and has a loop that goes above sea level. It seemed like it was siphoning back in. I could feel it on the hose.
Do you think we have crustacean around it and that's stopping the water from going out? Because you can hear the
No, but it was coming in though. I mean, it's supposed to go out, you get a loop, and you pump up to the top of the loop and it goes out at the bottom of the boat. It can't come back in because the loop's above sea level. But it felt like it was being siphoned back in. It's not at a really high rate, but a decent rate. And all I did was I took the bilge pump and I lifted it a little bit. That should have done nothing, but all of a sudden I can feel the vibrations stop, as if there was no water running back in, and the bilge stopped filling. So I really did nothing. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. Maybe I got to raise that loop higher, but I didn't move the loop.
Yeah, I know, it never happened before.
I mean, and I can't see why we would be any lower than we usually are. You know, we have full tanks, okay, so full tanks all the way around, but that shouldn't make a difference. Well, I'll keep investigating. Anyway, for now, bilge stopped filling, everything's good. It's fine now.
Then you didn't do a thing.
Not really, no. Nothing that should have made any difference, really.
Well, I turned the water off on it back. You want me to turn that back on and see if that...
Yeah, you can turn that back on. That wasn't it.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep an ear on it and keep listening to it. Okay. Roger out.
So I'm going to briefly explain to you what you just saw, because I know it wasn't very clear. We're sort of filming in the moment. What happened was Lynn woke up in the middle of the night and she heard the bilge pump running almost continuously. So she got me and we kind of explored the boat to figure out what was going on, and sure enough, we were bringing in water. We weren't sure how at first. We just knew that the main bilges in the under our engines were just filling up just about as fast as the bilge pump could get the water off of the boat. We eventually figured it out, and I thought I'd just kind of show you what happened, at least what our theory about what happened. And I have here a drawing of the drainage system on the boat. So let me grab the camera and Okay, what I have here is a drawing of the drainage system on our boat. And as you can see, there is a bilge pump in the bow. There is also one at the stern of the boat. And there is one originally in front of, or the bow side of each engine. This is here and, let me see, here and here. Now, somewhere along the line, somebody realized that wasn't really a good design because the shafts come out of the back of the engines. And so they moved or installed the bilge on this side of the engines closer to the shaft, which makes the most sense because that's where water would drip in. Anyway, they left the old bilges in place as sort of I guess an emergency backup bilge. Now, what happened was these bilges are rarely used. In fact, they have an on-off switch and also an auto switch, but they were always off when we got the boat. I do turn them on occasionally, say I'm cleaning the engine room area or something like that, and I need to drain water out of that section of the bilge. But other than that, it just never fills up, so it's never used. Now, what happens is the bilge pump itself has a loop. When it's pulling the water from below, it takes it up over a loop that goes over the height of the water line, and then it goes out the sea chest on the side of the boat, right here. And the sea chest is usually half underwater and half above water. It kind of looks like a dryer vent on the side of your house, but there's a 1.5 inch line, drainage line running to. So what we believe happened is that there was still water in the drainage line from that emergency bilge pump, and that when it pumps the water out, it goes up a loop higher than the water line, comes down, goes out the sea chest. And we believe there was water in the line on the pump side, since it would not have drained out of the sea chest. We think what happened was, because we had just taken on a full load of fuel, and because our holding tanks were full, we were listing somewhat to our starboard side. So what we think happened
was that we were listing enough that the sea chest itself was completely submerged underwater as opposed to half under, half above, creating basically a vacuum. And perhaps a rock in the boat or some kind of emotion was enough to get a siphon process going. So what was happening was the water was siphoning through this bilge pump that was turned off. And it was filling up the bilge, which was in turn going underneath our engine, coming out the other side into where the main bilge pump is, and the main bilge pump was pumping it out. So we basically had a loop happening where one bilge pump was siphoning water in about as fast as the other bilge pump could push it out of the boat. And that's why our boat kept filling up with water, or the bilges kept filling up. Until we had figured this out, it was just quite an accident. We didn't know what was going on. We thought, did we lose a sea conch? Is there a broken hose? We isolated the bow and the stern that there was no water in those areas. We knew it had to be around that engine compartment. And it was just a fluke that I reached in and I lifted up the non-used bilge pump just a little bit, just to kind of look under it and see, if anything was going on, and that stopped the process. And that's when I realized it was siphoning in. And that's really about it. I left the bilge pump up on a little bit higher area of the bilge itself, and that was the end of it. Could have been bad. I suppose eventually, had we not been on the boat, our bilge pump, the main one, probably would have failed eventually. Perhaps then they would have run and filled up the entire bilge, and then maybe the stern and the bow may have kicked in. I'm not sure, but anyway, it was a little bit frightening. Happened in the middle of the night. We were able to solve it in less than 5 minutes. So all's good, but man, it was an interesting experience.
All right, so we left the Daytona, New Smyrna area a few hours ago today. We had a nice stay in the marina. It's not close, I can tell. Anyway, we left a few hours ago, and we are on our way right now to Coco, where we're going to spend a night anchoring. We had a great stay last night. It was a nice marina. What was it called? Harbor Inn, or I can't even think of the name of it. It was just up the...
Marina.
I'm sorry?
Harbor Inlet Marina.
Harbor Inlet Marina.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it was a nice place to stay. The people were nice, and there's a bar there. There's some band playing, so you get food there, you can get fuel there, and it's not too far off of the inlet. You have to kind of backtrack about a mile, but it's pretty easy to get to. Anyway, we're going to anchor out where we anchored out last year, which is just past the bridge that we're coming up upon now. And hopefully the weather's going to stay good, and we will take a dinghy or the tender to shore and walk around the village, get dinner, some drinks. Oh, and one last thing I wanted to mention. Sometimes it's hard for us to get internet out here, or just to even find the time to respond to all the messages that we get. And I wanted to let you know I'm doing my absolute best to respond to everybody who writes to us. I want to touch base and say thanks for watching, and if you have questions, we really do like to answer them. Sometimes the messages get buried in old videos, and I don't always see them, and YouTube is not very good at setting up a structure for us to find old messages. So I just wanted to let you know, please feel free, ask us questions, give us advice. We really do look forward to it, and we try our best to talk to everybody who talks to us. Also, just in case you haven't realized, we don't always get a chance to edit in real time. If you want to see what we're doing actually right now, your best bet is to go check out our Facebook page as well, because we're posting there daily. Like for instance, right now we're going to Coco Village, and it is Mother's Day. By the time you see this, I imagine it's going to be 2 weeks from now at least. So check out our Facebook page. Definitely message us any questions or tips or advice, or yell at us, whatever you want to do. And we will do our absolute best to get back to you.
Also, there'll be more stuff on Patreon now that I got my laptop repaired.
Okay.
So
if you're on Patreon, we do apologize. We've been kind of neglecting. We often throw a lot of things up there early, just little tidbits of what we're doing and things that don't make the actual videos. But check that out, and we will be updating that regularly now too. Cool.
So we're anchored and we're safe. And the storm, when we were coming up this way, passed and the sun came out. Now this one's coming along. But we're all set. We're ready for it. We'll just wait for it to pass, and then we'll go to Coco Village and see what's new there. little dinghy. We're on our little dinghy ride. We didn't take the big one off. Why?
Because there's no dinghy docks, and this one we can just drag onto a grassy knoll, sort of rocky area that we found. But the other one's too big for the spot we have to squeeze into.
Yeah.
So this will do.
And I have the beer garden all to myself. There's no one here, it's a rainy day, and I got the beer garden all to myself. How cool is that? And no one's on stage tonight.